Welcome back to another episode of Against the Grain, where trends stop and performance starts. Now, I've gone ahead and I've found 10 questions that are the most asked questions about a topic that I love talking about, and that's rugby league. So we're going to get started. I'm going to go through each of these questions and answer as best I can. Not crazy long form or long answers, but I'll try to keep it shorter and to the point. So the first one is, how should I structure my training to get fitter for rugby league? Now, the term, whenever I hear someone say or use the term, I want to get fitter, fitness, fit, and I hear this term just over and over in sport, athletic preparation, I begin to get very worried. And rugby league is terrible and notoriously bad for hyper-focusing on endurance training. I use the term endurance, and everyone likes to use the term fitness. So how do I structure my training to get fitter for rugby league? Well, the stance that I take is that you play the sport to get the endurance for the sport. Now, you all sit there going, well, how do we play rugby league? There's risks associated with playing the game that I don't really want to have them exposed to in training, and that's a fair call. But what if we manipulated the game so that it made it safer and we still got the energy system exposure that we need in order to transfer to the competition? So you can manipulate the game so it's touch football or OzTag or whatever you want. Manipulate the amount of players on the field, the space in which they're using, whatever rule changes you need to make so that we are playing the sport in a modified sense and still getting the transfer positives to the game. So play the sport. And if you think that you're going to run up and down the beach, up and down mountains, and do all this low intensity, high volume, basically marathon running, and then all of a sudden get to the season and you're going to be able to perform explosive, repeated efforts for a period of, depending on if you're coming off the bench, could be 10 minutes right through to playing a full game of 80 minutes. If you think that that's going to transfer to that, I have bad news for you. The other side to that is that you're going to create injuries, and I talk about this a lot. The craziness that happens in November and December in rugby league impacts heavily the injury toll during the season, or even before the season even starts. There's players getting ACLs and all kinds of crazy shit, Achilles. This is all created. These injuries are created. It's a real shame for the athletes that they have to go through that. But if you want to structure your endurance training, number one, it shouldn't even be a priority in November, December. November, December is actually the non-specific physical qualities, or the injury prevention physical qualities, which are flexibility and strength. So if you're not prioritizing those particular physical qualities in November and December, you're already doing yourself a disservice in terms of injury prevention, like a massive disservice. And you're not prioritizing those things. You're not giving them that time. That's the only time of the year that you get to prioritize those two physical qualities. So you're wasting energy on a non-specific way of training endurance. Complete waste of time. And you're destroying athletes. So play the sport, or variations of the sport, skills, modified skills, whatever it is. Do it in a way that enhances the skill acquisition and the explosiveness of the athlete and their ability to repeat, etc., time frames, all that sort of stuff. Get that done. So that's question one. Question two, what strength and conditioning methods work best for rugby league? Underneath these questions, there's a little bit of a side note, and it says in this particular question, questions about which lifts, circuits, and conditioning drills develop power, speed, and durability. So it's sort of trying to cross over between strength and whatever the term conditioning is probably talking about endurance again. Strength-wise, if it's appropriate for the athlete at that particular time of their career, and I believe that the amount of extremely young athletes performing terrible strength training has increased the incidence of severe soft tissue injuries massively, and the stats back me up on that. And that's because the specialization at early ages with strength training, and in particular shitty strength training, is breaking the athletes. What the injuries that they used to get when they're, well, if you go back far enough, it used to be towards the end of their career. Now it got to the start of their career or their professional career, maybe even around 20, has now dropped. That age has dropped back, and now you're seeing kids at 13, 14 blowing their ACLs and their shoulders apart, and no one's asking themselves a question or taking accountability for the way that they're training, creating that. But if we're to talk strength, I like maximal strength, but you don't have to start there. You can move through general strength, hypertrophy, prior to going to that, and develop the skills with different lifts, unilateral single joint, multi-joint, moving through to bilateral multi-joint. Make sure you got the skill first, the qualities there of the lift. Now, what I will say with strength training, it's more important as an athlete how you're lifting, the shape of the body whilst you're lifting. You need to have a postural model, a model of the body posturally that equates to optimal muscle joint function, and then stick as close to that as you can within your strength training. With the understanding of some exercises go away from it, but you don't want to encourage a shape of the body that is going to make the athlete worse or get injured. So I like maximal strength ultimately, and you can develop power in a couple of different ways. Through maximal strength with the intent to be fast. It may not look fast because you're lifting a heavy weight, but the intent can be there as long as you're not breaking down technically. And then you have the other option, which is to move lighter loading actually fast, so it looks fast. And both have their place. You can use both of them at the same time and contrast them. That's fantastic. But don't think that one way is better than the other. It's always down to the individual's needs at that particular time of their career, their injury potential, or if they had injuries already, hopefully they haven't. You've got to consider all the individual number one and then work out from there. As for, what did I say, conditioning methods, well, I already sort of talked about this. Well, I did talk about this. Play the sport. If your concern is conditioning, and I'm assuming conditioning is a synonym for endurance, play the sport, modified variations of the sport, modify the rules, the timeframes, whatever you have to do to get that result that you want. So that's question 2. Okay, question 3. How do I improve my speed and acceleration specifically for rugby league? First thing I'm going to say about that is speed and acceleration shouldn't be two words there. Acceleration is a sub-quality of speed. So speed's at the top, and then you have the sub-qualities of speed underneath. And acceleration is one of those sub-qualities. It's like people saying, I need to develop my speed and agility. Well, agility is a sub-quality of speed. So how do I develop my speed is a better way of saying it. Just to clear that up. So underneath it has a little side note. Players seek advice on drills and techniques to increase speed and there you go, speed and agility for game performance. Speed and agility. It's not. It's just speed. So first thing I want to know is how do they run? Technical model is critical for athletes. We're talking about rugby league athletes. I want to see them run, and I want to trial some drills and things to see if we can get a result, if we can improve them. And you can see it and feel it straight away normally. That's what people don't understand. If you drill, if you're really hitting the weak point in their running action and you nail that, they'll feel the improvement the next time they go for a trial run. So I'll see them run, and then I'll say, okay, I want to try this drill to try and improve this. Or I might not even tell them what we're working on. I'll say, I'll just try this drill. You go and do the drill a couple of times through. Okay, we're going to run through again, and you're going to tell me what you feel. I don't want to influence the outcome. I'll say, how'd you feel? And they'll tell me X, Y, and Z, and then I'll express what I saw as well. So this is an ongoing process in speed training for the rugby league athlete, and the distances that traditionally that are used in rugby league are way over the mark in terms of what they're exposed to in the game. So on average, they're probably running 5 to 10 meters. They're probably sprinting 5 to 10 meters on repeat as an overall average. But then if we go to positions, we're then looking at the further you go out in the back line towards the centers and the wingers, and then you've got the fullback as well, the meterage, the average meterage that they sprint for on repeat is longer. So you might get out to 30s, 40s, or even out to 60 meters. It depends on how you want to approach the athlete and the position. But traditionally, speed isn't even trained as speed training in rugby league. It's just another bullshit endurance session. If you are fatigued during a speed session, you're not training speed. When I say fatigued, you're going to have a little bit of work done, but you're not going to really be fatigued. That's just endurance. So I think most rugby league athletes, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience too, they're just doing another endurance session, which is not what they need. The obsession with being fatigued all the time is another really big weak point for coaching of rugby league. If you want to improve speed, there should be very little fatigue involved. Very little. The work-rest ratios should be in favour of staying fresh and learning how to move properly, and then being able to repeat that movement at a progressively higher and higher intensity without dropping off your technique. So if we talk about the forwards, for example, they're probably running 5 meters on average. What's the point in fucking running them at repeat 40s to 60 meters and they can't even run 5 meters well, can't even run 3 meters well? Like, we need to get, it is one of the specific qualities, physical qualities. We need to be more specific with what they require positionally. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to work on the drilling for the technique, and you're going to have to work on, I also should mention, you're going to have to work on body positions, off ground speed work, getting up off the ground at multiple body positions. That's extremely important for a rugby league player. Getting strength at lower joint angles, as well as the speed component, getting speed through low joint angles. So that's as far as I'll go with that one. Otherwise, I'll talk all day. Question 4. What's the best way to prepare in the off-season to avoid in-season injuries? Great question. What's the little sidebar? Many wonder about off-season programming, what to prioritize, and how to periodize training. Periodization is a fancy word for planning. And in the off-season, November, December is a GPP, a general preparatory phase. You should be training or prioritizing the non-specific physical qualities, which are flexibility and strength. If you are not prioritizing those by sequence, by volume, intensity, all the rest of it, then you are doing what I call mixed training, and you will get a mixed result. And it is definitely not as optimal as priority training. If you want to improve something, it should show in your program. You should be able to look at a program and say, oh, you're working on this and this. I can see that. It should be glaringly obvious. So flexibility training and strength training in November and December. Any other shit that you're doing is not as important. So it should be minimal exposure, and endurance is not even a question if you're doing things the way that they should be done. So that's a GPP, and that's where you prevent injuries, because you reverse the imbalances that the previous season has just created. The quad dominance from a shitload of running during the season. There's a lot of rounds in a rugby league season. So that the quad dominance, you need to reverse that. So that your strength training, for example, should be hip dominant lifts. As an example. I'm not saying it should be all, but there should be a hip dominant bias if the athlete is showing quad dominance. So you should be training the glutes and the hamstrings more so to try and counter what the sport has created previous season. That's just an example. So flexibility-wise, if you don't have an individualized, dedicated flexibility program with a high volume of stretching, you got a little bit of rolling, massage. If you're not doing any of that stuff for your individual needs, sorry to say, but your body is going to be in big trouble. The more time you spend playing the sport, the worse it's going to get. And the more time you do a shitty strength program, the worse it's going to get. So, what's the best way to prepare in the off-season to avoid in-season injuries? Yep. So I pretty much answered that. Get into a individualized flexibility program, individualized strength program for your needs as an athlete. And that November and December will set you up for a great season. As long as you don't do any dumb shit during the SPP, which is January, February, where you do high volume, low intensity trash endurance training. As long as you don't get stuck into that bullshit, then you're going to have a great season if you have a smart GPP. Okay. Question 5. This is an interesting question. How do I train for rugby league if I don't have access to a team? And this is me right now, because I'm looking to make a comeback to playing. I'm 35, so there's enough challenges involved in that. I mean, you've got my injury history from when I last played, from when I was my last season was, I think I was 21. So it's a long time ago. And I understand this challenge, because you like to get the ball in the hand. The closer you get to the season, you get the ball in the hand and do some skill work. And, myself recently, I've just been passing the ball to no one. So I'll jump out of dummy half and do a movement and pass the ball, like could be a long ball, cut out ball, or just a short ball, whatever it is. I've been doing that stuff on my own. So it is a challenge. So that's how I've been dealing with it. You can do plenty of stuff outside of that, whether it be speed training, and you can do all your flexibility training and strength training on your own. There's no issues with that, unless you need a spotter for strength training, which can be a little bit more difficult at the maximal strength end of the program. Unless you got some mates that have some experience throwing a football around and can keep up if you're a little bit more skilled than them, then that's another option as well. But yeah, training on your own is a challenge, but you can certainly do it. It's not as good, obviously, as having someone there to catch the ball for you and develop that accuracy with your passing and things like that. And the contact side of it, you're going to have to get into the season and see how you go. Outside of that, there's not much you can do. You just have to do your best. All right, next question. How do beginners or players returning after a long break get back into condition? Let me hear that word again, condition. Condition might be just referring to the safety of the body, so the reducing the risks of injury when exposed to intense training. And it's certainly important. Certainly important. So if you're a beginner or you're a long break, you've got to get into training. You've got to ease into it. This is where a lot of people fuck up. If they've played before after a long, like myself, I'm a good example of this, and off a long break. Mentally, I could just go back into being part of an intense environment, because that's the last memory I have of playing rugby league. Physically, not even close. The amount of time that I've had off playing, I'm now 35, I last played when I was 21, 22, not even close physically to where I was then, in terms of being conditioned to the sport. You got to really ease into it. Low volume, low intensity to start, and build your volume carefully, build your intensity carefully, listen to your body. If you're a beginner, you want to do the fundamentals anyway. To be honest, if you're off a long break, you should be just easing back in through the fundamentals anyway, but you really just got to go slow. Let the body dictate the rate at which you lift your volume and lift your intensity. Because trust me, if you get that wrong, you can really hurt yourself. And hurt yourself, there's no training. And there's another problem to overcome. So, fitness, there's a little side note about fitness. That's not my ultimate concern. I want to know that the tissues are going to be okay with intense efforts. When people talk about fitness, they want to do long, high volume shit. Ease yourself back in and build your volume slowly. Be careful about that. How do beginners? Oh, sorry, that's the same question. What are the fundamental skills I should focus on in training? And the side note is questions about prioritizing ball handling, tackling technique, and decision making in sessions. Geez, it depends. The answer is it depends. What do you need at the time? You could have a team that broken up into positional groups, working on their specific areas of weakness, whether that be skills with the ball in hand. Defensive stuff, it's an interesting topic in and of itself. Rehearsing too much defensive stuff can be a risk of injuries, contact injuries. You can minimize that with the use of pad holding and all the rest of it. But I feel defense, so this is a different take than the mainstream. If you're a beginner, if you're a pure beginner, obviously you're going to need to go through some sort of coaching with how to actually perform a tackle. But if you've been playing a long time, you know how to tackle, get your head on the right side of the body, and depending on which way they're running, obviously, getting yourself into a body position that optimizes contact. All that sort of stuff. If you've played for a while, you're going to know that sort of stuff. If you're a pure beginner, you need to go through it, definitely. For experienced rugby league players, I believe it comes back to your mentality. Do you want to take that person down? What's your competitive drive to win that effort? I think defensive training, like actual full-on contact training, is way overused. Way overused. It's a mentality. I understand that there's shapes, defensive shapes that teams want to use, and you can drill those in absence of full-on contact. I just don't see the point in risking severe injuries with full contact sessions. I know they have the time and place, but I would use them sparingly. If you've got an issue with someone defensively, I'd be sitting them down and having a talk to them. It's probably their mentality surrounding maybe there's a bit of fear involved, or lack of self-belief, lack of drive to win every effort. It's probably a bit of counselling that needs to go on there. If you've got a good culture of helping each other out, and you're aggressive in your competitive nature, defense is not going to be an issue. That's my take on it. Decision making, so tactical stuff. This is all team run throughs. Yeah, what do you need? Like, what's letting you down? I couldn't possibly answer that with any accuracy. You'd have to rewatch footage, go through it together, troubleshoot, drill some things, watch another game. Did it work? Yes or no? It might take a couple of months. So you'll have to figure that out in the short, medium, and long term. Next question. How do I balance strength training with on-field practice? Good question. And then the side note is players and coaches ask how to integrate gym sessions with running, agility, and skills work. So it's a valid question. So now you're talking about the topic of integration of physical qualities and how they affect each other. Anyone that's done a lower body hypertrophy general strength session before going and running on the field will understand the impact that has on your how heavy that makes your legs feel. Not ideal, but sometimes it might have to happen. It's definitely not ideal though. So what time of the year is it as well? Like, what is it? Is it the GPP or is it the SPP? Because in the GPP in November, December, strength is the priority. So strength gets that priority by sequence. And any running that you do realistically should be like games and just fun stuff. I mean, sports should be fun, no matter what the level. The fact that it loses that is just madness to me. It's a game. Rugby league is a game. Different topic in and of itself. So in the SPP, strength becomes, it's not the priority. So speed becomes a priority. You might start introducing games of touch footy or something like that, games that replicate the sport. So they become the priority during that January, February, those months. And you want to maintain the maximal strength levels that you achieved in November and December. So then you start making sure physical quality training like speed is sequenced before strength trainings, unless you do a very low volume, high intensity, like high loading strength session for the lower body early in the day, and then you do a PM speed training session where you'll actually benefit from having the strength first. But it's not a hypertrophy session, it's a maximal strength, low volume session where the fatigue isn't dragged over. It's going to fire up the body neurally so that you can explode later on in the day. So that's an example of how you can sequence them in a way that benefits. But speed is the priority. So it should get sequence, it should get the frequency, and strength takes more of a backseat, so to speak. How do you coach junior versus senior players differently? It's a great question. So, as a general comment, I don't think I mentioned before, there's this specialization that's happening at younger and younger ages, and you're just destroying the fun in the sport for young kids. If they're not having fun, and this goes for adults as well, if they're not having fun at training, they're not going to want to be there. It's going to kill your culture. It's going to be very hard to develop a strong culture. When you're having fun, you're more creative. When you're more creative, you tend to play better football. It makes a hell of a difference. The enjoyment. When the enjoyment's there, it speaks for itself. I think everyone's been through that. Once sport starts feeling like a job, you lose your passion, your drive for it. It's terrible. So juniors need to focus, generally speaking, on getting the basics right. Get the basics right. Make sure they're really enjoying their football, but they're really doing the basic stuff correctly. And you are putting them through high focus activities with time frames that are relevant or appropriate for their age. There's a connection between age in minutes. So like if they're an 8-year-old, 8 minutes of high levels of focus and then they're gone. So you need to use that to your advantage based on your age groups you're working with. So you can't expect them to have an adult level of focus when they're just a child. That happens a lot, and coaches get all frustrated. It's like, well, they're just kids. So communicate effectively for the appropriate timeframes for a child and develop those fundamentals and make sure they're having a lot of fun doing it. And don't specialize. Don't try and get the athletes specializing too early. There's so much time for them to do that in their career later on. So that's what I would say about that. Last one. What qualifications and pathways are there to become a rugby league coach? This is an area I'm definitely not an expert in. I'm a physical preparation coach, not a rugby league coach. So I'm sure there's plenty of pathways if you wanted to go down the accreditation path. And if you need to do that in order to get a job position, then you've got to do that. The value of that, I'm not sure. I know if you need it, you got to get it, so be it. But you're going to get, the real learning comes when you actually get stuck in and you start working with people. That's when you're going to learn real quick where your weak spots are. Really quick, like straight away. And you'll realize that there's a very small, likely realize, there's a very small portion of what you learn that's relevant to working in a real environment. You're gonna find out real quick about being efficient with your communication, your cues, individualizing the training process as much as you can in a team environment, which is tough to do. Does your accreditation course cover all these areas in detail? I doubt it, because it'll probably just be a short course. So yeah, get it done, get it out of the way, and add it to your resume. But don't wear it as a badge of honor. You've got to get in and start working with people and learn that way. So that is the 10 questions for Rugby League. Now, hopefully you found some value in that. I know I probably went on a little bit too long with some of those, but it is an area that I love talking about. I played Rugby League for a long time, and I'm looking to make a comeback as an older athlete, and we'll see how the body goes. But it has been a lot of fun along the way, and I might actually do another one of these and find out some more questions. And if you have any questions about what I've talked about in this, absolutely put them in the comments, and it'll just give me more content and more things to talk about. You can break off from these questions in so many different directions. So I might do that again for the next one. But for now, that's us. We're done, and I'll see you next time.